As a Boston Celtics fan, I'm not convinced that we can go back to back. Welcome in or welcome back. Happy opening day to those who celebrate. Again, we're talking about the Boston Celtics today on the night that they get their championship rings. If you've watched more than one of these videos in this playlist, first of all, thank you. But secondly, I hope that it has been displayed well enough that I try to be really positive and look for the brighter side in things in every single NBA team. I myself, in my own personal life, am very cynical, so when I look at my favorite basketball team, I can't help but be a little bit cynical. And it's not for some weird false confidence thing. I think it's more of a self-preservation tool, if anything. I think that if I lower the expectations so low that anything above finishing dead last in the NBA isn't really good for me and my mental health, I do it for that and other teams that I'm a fan of too. I don't talk about it a lot because this is a basketball channel, but I love baseball as well, and I'm an Atlanta Braves fan. So anytime that we do better than, say, 70 wins, I'm super cool. It was really, really great when, in 2021, the Atlanta Braves won the World Series. I never expected that, though. I expected us to get bounced in the first round, and we didn't, and that's how I ended up being so happy. I take the same principles with the Boston Celtics. So every single year, last year included, I looked at all of our offseason acquisitions and I go, yeah, that seems like an 8 seed for sure. Absolutely. We're just going to sneak right into the playoffs. I think the Celtics winning for the first time in 16 years and the first time since I was in literally middle school has kind of shifted that a little bit. I think we're going to be a really competitive 4 seed now. Part of that's a joke, and part of that is really just managing expectations because we are going to have some difficult obstacles ahead of us. The two things that come to mind immediately when I think about the rough road ahead of us is, of course, primary among them, the injury to Kristaps Porzingis, Tingus Pingus. I can't explain to you how much of a weird road I had with this whole Kristaps Porzingis thing. Obviously, we had to give up Marcus Smart to get him last year, and that gutted me. That seemed very taboo, not necessarily in the landscape of basketball, but just for Celtics culture. It was as if you traded Paul Pierce away when he was traded to the Nets. Like, it was that big of a gut punch to me. You traded the heart and soul of your team away for a guy at the time who was injury riddled and who was kind of viewed as maybe not a bust, but just a role player. And then, of course, my mood has changed on Tingus Pingus because he became the best stretch 5 in the entire league and defended the rim at a very high level. I am going to miss him now because I would assume, I'm no doctor, but off of every report that I've ever read, the earliest we're probably going to see him now is middle of January. I would say normally, under normal circumstances, that wouldn't necessarily be that big of an issue. We just shift everybody down and everybody plays a different position than what they're used to, and the Celtics are so talented that they would figure it out. We also rely on our backups. The problem this year is that Al Horford, I love you, Al, if you're listening somehow. The problem is that Al Horford is not getting any younger, and the only other reliable playmaking forward that we have within our bench unit is Xavier Tillman. And don't get me wrong, I love X. I was a big fan of him at Michigan State. I thought that he did great in Memphis. I really believed in his ability to make an impact, and we saw that throughout a couple of games in the playoffs. I'm not sure that his immediate impact could be felt through a long stretch of the season. I'm not sure that his spark plug ability, like when he was stretching the floor for us in the finals and deep into the playoffs, I'm not sure that is something that could be sustainable through the next 4 months that we're going to miss Kristaps Porzingis. Looking at our depth chart, we just have guys that have been there before. Peyton Pritchard showed up huge in the finals. Guys like Luke Cornett, guys like Sam Hauser. We have seasoned veterans on this team. And maybe not veteran in the sense of like they've been in the league for 10 years, but they have been at the highest level in the biggest moments, and they know how to play basketball in those moments. I am a little saddened because just recently we had to waive Lonnie Walker, and I thought that he was going to be a really good pickup for us through the season, especially with Kristaps Porzingis being out. I feel like Jason Tatum probably could have played like this small ball 5, and we could have slotted Lonnie into a shooting guard spot, and it really could have worked out well. But I digress. Just a little side note, if someone like Lonnie Walker is getting waived, I think that it is well overdue time to get expansion in the league. And I mean super expansion. Like, give me 4 teams in the next 4 years. I think with the health of everyone involved, it's going to be super important for the Celtics to have inning eaters throughout the regular season. I think that Peyton Pritchard and Sam Hauser and Luke Cornett are obviously going to get a lot of minutes. And we may even go to guys like Jordan Walsh and Jaden Springer and Baylor Shireman. I do wish that some of the guys like J.D. Davidson and Jordan Walsh and Baylor Shireman could get some shine this year, I think that having as good of a team as the Celtics have, having this influx of young talent could be really beneficial. I don't think that it's necessarily in anyone's best interest for the three of them to be as good as they are and spend a lot of their time in Maine. Everything else, I think, is going to be really status quo. I think that the backcourt duo of Derek White and Jrue Holiday is obviously going to be a menacing force for the rest of the league. I expect Derek White to still shoot the shit out of the ball. I expect Jrue Holiday to step up in big moments like he did. But outside of them, it really comes down to how are the Jays going to perform this year. Jason Tatum really had an interesting summer. I really can't imagine or can't think of or remember the last time that someone of his caliber, that someone who had the season that he did, go into Olympic basketball, World Cup basketball, and not get any PT at all. But that's exactly what happened, and I think that that may be the catalyst to him competing for an MVP award this year. Yeah, he's going to get disrespected. Yeah, it's not going to be flashy. It's not going to be like an Anthony Edwards kind of appeal to the broader masses. But I think that there's a real scenario where we're looking at something similar to what he did in the finals and just consistent across the board. 28, 7, and 7 on good shooting splits. Like something like that can be a really good indicator of a great player, and if the Celtics are a top 2 or 3 seed, I'd have to imagine that he gets another look at MVP. I hope that's the case anyway, because I couldn't imagine being in his shoes, having that good of a summer and not having a chip on my shoulder. I just hope that it translates onto the court. And then last, but certainly not least, my favorite Celtic on the team, Jaylen Brown. I'm not the only one to feel this way, and this isn't an original thought, but I have always believed that while Jason Tatum may be the better player on the team, I think that Jaylen Brown is our most important player. Jaylen Brown, for a lack of a better term, is an energy guy. And I don't mean energy guy as in like a Jordan Clarkson or a Tyler Hero from a couple years back. I mean the guy who is an energy shifter. A lot of times throughout the season, last year and the years before that, if Jaylen Brown came out flat, the team came out flat. It didn't necessarily depend on Jaylen Brown being good in the opening 12 minutes. It meant that he showed effort. And if he wasn't out there showing effort, it seemed like the rest of the Celtics followed suit. So coming up this season, I'd have to imagine that after winning the Eastern Conference Finals MVP and then after winning the Finals MVP and not getting invited to the Team USA camp, I would have to imagine that Jaylen Brown is going to come out and also put in an MVP bid. Jaylen isn't the playmaker that I want him to be, but he definitely has it in him. But I don't see another scenario where he wouldn't come out and average like 25, 5, and 5. Again, that would be lesser than what Jason Tatum's doing, so he would obviously get the nod in the media's eyes for the MVP vote. But having those two on the same page, putting up those kind of numbers, is what's going to get the Celtics back to the championship. But all of those good things aside, going back to my very first point in the video, I'm not convinced that the Celtics can actually go back-to-back. Do you know how hard it is to go back-to-back in this league? And I don't want to bring up the same talking point that everyone else has. Everyone else is talking about Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are not top 10 of all-time players, so it's really impossible to go back-to-back. I don't view it that way. When LeBron and D-Wade went back-to-back in the early 2010s, no one was viewing either of them at the time necessarily as a top 10 player. LeBron was coming up on it very quick, but after winning the first championship, we weren't ready to solidify him as one of the top 10 greatest players ever. So it takes time. We are assuming that Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown won't finish in that category. And will they? Probably not, but that doesn't mean that they can't. The reason that I don't think that the Celtics can go back-to-back is part of the injury issue, part of Al Horford's age, and some of our lack of experience on our bench, but also the league is just so good. There are 3 legitimate contenders in the East, and I think that those are the Knicks, the Bucks, and the 76ers. You can throw the Pacers in there as well, although I don't feel like their style of play is necessarily proven to win at the highest level. Once you get through that gauntlet in the East, you have to take out whoever comes out of the West. My money is on the Oklahoma City Thunder just because of the superstardom that is SGA, the ascension of Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams, and the pickups that they had throughout the offseason. I think that their lack of experience could come to harm them, though. So after that, you have to look at the rest of the field, and the rest of the field is no cakewalk. You can never count out the Denver Nuggets. You can never count out Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, despite the fact that they lost Cat. And you can never count out Luka Doncic and the new-look Dallas Mavericks. And there may be other contenders as well. The Kings made a lot of noise last year with Domantas Sabonis and De'Aaron Fox, and the fact that they picked up DeMar DeRozan means that they're going to be even better. There could be a chance that John Morant turns to this MVP form like he was a couple years ago and leads the Grizzlies deep into the playoffs. And maybe even a dark horse candidate like the Golden State Warriors, because you can never count out Steph Curry, could end up being in the finals yet again, even when we don't expect them to be. I don't want to believe that the Celtics don't have it in them, and I'm not necessarily counting them out. I think that going back-to-back is one of the hardest things you can do in sports. That's why we don't see it very often. The last 2 times that we saw it was the Steph Curry, Kevin Durant Warriors and the Heatles in Miami. So while I don't think that the Celtics are on that level, I think that if they prove a lot of people wrong, myself included, we have to now consider Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown top 5 in the world. But that's all I have today. If you have managed to watch all of my videos, or even just some of them, thank you. I really wanted to challenge myself, again, as someone who has a full-time job and doesn't necessarily put out a lot of YouTube content. I just wanted to see if I can do it. And let me tell you, this is hard. This was a struggle a lot of times. There were some days that I could just stockpile of content and knock out a couple videos a day, but overall, this was really hard, and I can definitely see how being a full-time content creator could be less taxing than what I'm doing right now. But again, if you've watched some of these videos, thank you very much. I've talked about it in a bunch of the videos. I have a link tree down there, and there are a lot of other places you can keep up with me. If you enjoy short form content, I do YouTube Shorts, I am on Instagram Reels, I'm on TikTok, and we also have a budding community on a Discord server that I have. I'd love for you to join that if you wanted to. We have a lot of lively conversation every day. We'd love to have you a part of that. Below my link tree, I am also going to link to a lot of people who I look up to or I admire or I feel like are my peers. Just some people that I get some information from. Coach Lou, Jokic Joestar, Kenny Beecham, Kofi Wide, Twan Speaks. I just want to say thank you to all those people who are either inspiring to me or I'm lucky enough to call them mutuals. I need you to go check out all their stuff as well. But yeah, that's all I have for today and this series. Let me know what you think about the Celtics. Do you think they can go to back-to-back? Let me know down in the comments below. Again, check my link tree, join the Discord, be kind, tell somebody you love them, and I'll see you next time.